So,
Just give me 1 second,
Okay.
Ms. Wilcox. I'll just let you know when we've gone live and I'll just share our agenda. Perfect. And now we're live.
okay. So, shall I just call the meeting to order?
Perfect.
Okay. And then, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I would make the motion.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Perfect. And recorded vote, Deputy Mayor Huntley,
Yeah.
Leslie Wilcox,
Yes.
Lisa Crawford, and Kath D'Amico. Perfect.
And then the next item is, does anyone have any pecuniary interests or anything to disclose?
Sorry, did
I
we
see.
get the agenda approved?
Yes.
We
And
did.
The agenda is approved, sorry.
then we're on to number 3, the disclosure of, I always mess this word up. Pecuniary.
Pecuniary.
Thank you. I don't have anything to declare. Does anyone else?
Did you say seeing none? Moving on.
None. Okay, thanks.
No closed session.
No closed session. So the minutes. And then I'm just waiting for the minutes to come up. And can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting for Kath? And then do we have a seconder?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Leslie Wilcox,
Yes.
Lisa Crawford, Kath D'Amico, Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Yes.
Great.
Great. So are we going to jump into the agenda, and just go through it? Sorry, I just actually wanted to ask a question before we get started about the energy conservation and demand management plan. I was wondering if, and like at our first meeting, we had talked about potentially having subcommittees, and I'm wondering if this may be something that we could explore having a subcommittee for, just because it's such a large document. And I have quite a few comments that I haven't been able to record or send to you guys yet. So I just wanted to put it out there to the group in terms of how we wanted to actually move forward with updating this plan, because I think it's going to be the basis for everything we do this year, or let me rephrase, in the next 4 years. So I was kind of envisioning it being a more potentially collaborative effort with the committee members, working I guess with you, Bridget, just to offer like support, so we can come up with a updated draft that we can bring back to the committee.
It's totally up to the committee how you want to approach that.
I'm open.
Yeah.
So I would suggest through you, Vice Chair.
Sorry.
That I would suggest through you, like editing a document as a committee is an exercise in futility. I think it's much better if a couple people or, take away and make their edits and have discussions and bring back whatever edits they've made and say, here's what we've looked at, here's what we've done, here's what we've gotten rid of. Rather than do a page turn of a room full of people who are going to stare at it and go, what? I don't understand.
So most of the edits that I've done to date are mostly just kind of housekeeping type things. So
Yeah.
like the first one is, obviously would be a date update on the first page. It says June 2014, so we would do August 2013, or 2023. Sorry,
Yeah.
going back in time. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I
So,
think,
yeah.
I guess
and-
I just think that, I mean, that's however you guys normally do it. That's how we can do it. I just think that, there's an element of kind of familiarization with the plan. talk about, we need to have that discussion about what our goals and objectives are before we update the plan. I think we're doing it in reverse. This plan is all new to all the committee members, so I just want to be respectful of the work that has to go into updating it. Hi, Kath.
Hi, sorry, I just want to ask, like, in terms of maybe going through this document, or I'm wondering if this plan was ever presented to anybody in the form of a PowerPoint, where there are slides that sort of speak to each of, like, just that lays it out in a way that maybe might be easier to interpret and digest and familiarize ourselves with, because it is a large document, and there's a lot to it, and a lot to unpack.
Especially when you have to read it in conjunction with your climate change action plan, right?
Yeah.
Which is part of another bigger plan as well.
And we're coming in cold, right? Like, we didn't write this document. We weren't
yeah.
involved in the development of it. There's a lot of context that we don't get.
Yeah, absolutely. How that was this presented to council, I wasn't involved, so.
Presentation, it came out, mandated, we had to get it done. Got dropped on my plate, we got done, good, it's in there, but something that at least somewhat fruitful, that's why we did projects, that we didn't have a real committee, and we didn't have staffing to actually.
You didn't actually even have the staff, right? You had my name. I hadn't even started. She looks like she'd be a girl, yeah.
Yeah, I think however is the best way to do it. The actual mechanism of how we create the document, I don't really have a preference for. I think what I'm trying to articulate is it needs to, I think, do it properly and really get into it. We can't just slip it into one agenda item in a 2-hour meeting and expect to really make progress.
Yeah, for sure. And so would it make sense for us to develop a bit of a slide presentation for the next meeting that kind of pulls together the climate change action plan, and then we can kind of shift that into our goals and priorities, and have a conversation like that where we have our goals and objectives conversation, and then we can take it back and try and update this plan after that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Do it that way?
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Bridget. I think there's a couple of things happening, like the committee just trying to understand, the history in the document. Also wanting to set some goals and objectives that can then feed into the document. And personally myself, I just want to make sure that we have the time and it gets the attention that it needs to, really create a meaningful document that we can leverage and lean on, over the course of the next 4 years.
Almost like it needs a strategic planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of putting and I'm not saying this to be, just to be critical at all. I'm just, the way my mind works, I feel like we're kind of putting the horse before the cart. Like, good to review the document. It was really helpful that we went through it at our first meeting. You explained the background. And then I think the next step, my suggestion would be, as we're a newly formed group, create our goals and objectives, then move forward and update the plan and publish the plan. I just, based on some of the, the questions that people are asking, and the need to really understand what our objectives are going to be. I think that a suggestion would be to consider how can we really just not chop this piece off, but focus on this piece as our first priority of this group. And then I think we need an entire committee meeting to actually go through it. And
I think you do too. Yeah.
This was our main, this was the key thing for the committee.
Yeah.
Really, everything else we had was just ideas, but this was Because when we had to get this in quick, we rushed it in, we just made internal staff the committee and we got it in time, and it just kind of sat there.
Yeah,
So the real thing is to make a, like you said, a much more fruitful committee with public input. And not just me writing words on a document to get it in time. So like that is the committee biggest role, so I'm not sure if you need a subcommittee, because I think this committee, like,
Could do it.
we could just focus literally on this and
Yeah.
nothing else, and that would be successful
Yeah.
in my eyes, and everything else is just bonus.
So
Well,
I
if
just-
you're gonna do that, then you kind of have to worry about it. There's no way this is gonna happen.
So I am doing some training through MAFRA on strategic planning, and it does separate a process into 4 parts.
yeah,
So would it make sense if we kind of just dedicated the next 4 meetings to those 4 parts and kind of just apply it to what we're trying to do?
I don't know what this for.
Well, they're fabulous.
I can't hear
So-
Rod, but I think he said something funny because he looks like he's laughing.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Sarcastic.
Sarcastic, okay.
Maybe
Yeah,
what I could do is outline like a strategic plan process that we could apply over the next 4 meetings. 4
yeah,
or 5, that we can kind of chunk it up. Because I think you're right, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of variables.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that we can. I think if we try and rush it, we're
we're not gonna add any benefit.
right.
I mean, I wouldn't say any, but it would be minimal.
No, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's a big undertaking.
it is. And I appreciate, I guess the difficulty in, just having to complete a document by a certain time, but not being able to have that time to, engage the community or form a committee to develop it. So I think it's like the bones are there, it's structured well. And I think I like that idea of taking a strategic planning approach. I think that's the best way to move forward. And that will help engage all the committee members. And then in going through that, that will help, I think, bring up the level of understanding, and then we can all start from the same place and move forward.
So I'm just wondering, this plan is just for municipal buildings.
That's
So when we were looking at the climate action plan, it had residential and agricultural. This is outside of that.
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 parts that we have, so we have the plan that we had to have in place, basically it was up to us to create it. Yeah, it speaks to, because we had a limited amount of time and staff to be able to even do it, it really. To put stuff in there that we could actually credibly do. We really can only do our own buildings, so we're committed to these projects because we can do it, and throw it in it. Doesn't mean that we can't make the bigger picture, that when we go to amend it, that it doesn't encompass more.
Oh,
The reporting part that we have to do is only municipal buildings. But this plan can be whatever we want it to be, really.
yeah, and the climate change action plan came after the requirement for this. So this plan was actually created first. And there were 2 separate initiatives. So Sustainable Peterborough was an initiative that I think it was something to do with municipalities having access to the gas tax, I think is what kind of started it, but they created a committee, Sustainable Peterborough. They had to have a plan or a vision as to how they would be sustainable for the next 25 years. So from that, they had theme areas. Climate change was one of them. And one of the initiatives for climate change was to become a partner in climate change protection through Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and then create a climate change action plan. So it was done kind of at the regional level. It was done through the city of Peterborough, the county, and all the member townships.
And the presentations.
And First Nations, yeah. So Sustainable Peterborough was the encompassing, the climate change action plan was a theme area. and it created a climate change action plan for the region and for each individual municipality and First Nations. So but it was done separate from this, and I think where Kyle and I are is like, well, we have these two independent documents. One is for municipal only, the other has municipal and communities. So let's try and see if we can bring them together. So we have one wholesome plan. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you have the consistency
Yeah.
with everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think, Kyle, you said something, and we were supposed to have a discussion about energy data, and I had to cancel, but I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on, should we include a data management strategy within the plan, or do you want to have that, like, would that be separate? I'm just not sure of how, I guess, the corporate expectation of the township and how you guys would like to manage that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think it probably should speak to it in the plan as well, because I mean, our minimum reporting is what we do, but maybe we want to do more than that. And we want to bring annual reporting to council so they can see what initiatives are being successful, all that type of thing. So I think there definitely should be a reporting portion in there. Sure, yeah. Like I said, when we do have this training for this next part, we'll see what that can give us too. It's maybe, it doesn't appear to be bumping up the reporting
Okay. That's
data that comes out of it a lot better.
That's good. They're finally, starting to make life a bit easier and more meaningful when you actually, have a good reporting structure. Okay, so I guess, Cindy, how do we move forward on this? Do I ask for a motion?
Yeah, I think if the committee agrees, let's take a motion that says the Sustainability Advisory Committee, we just received the updated energy conservation and demand management plan for information. That's just with Bridget's edits. And that we request staff to bring back a strategic planning process to approach updating the energy conservation and management demand plan. Something to that effect. Do you think, is that the right words, Bridget, we would use?
Yeah, I think the other thing was what Kath had mentioned about having like a, maybe leading into that strategic planning process is just a little bit of background that kind of tells the story behind the
PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So staff report back on a strategic planning process.
I don't think about the background to how we got here. I think it's more of an explanation of what the plan is.
I see. Okay.
That's what I thought too. So then that will come out of the strategic planning process. I think when we break out each of these points, it'll probably end up telling us what each of the sections are.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kath.
Thank you. So knowing that the climate change action plan is going to be like a guiding document and plan for a renewed energy conservation and demand management plan. I'm just thinking about, as we move forward with updating this document, there needs to be a way to structure the new document to reflect the structure of the climate change action plan so that it's easy to see how they relate to one another.
Right. Incorporate.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering if we even
Yeah.
started by like understanding how the climate change action plan has been structured so that we can begin by adopting that structure as we reorganize and update this plan.
I think I follow your train of thought on that, Kath. I think that makes sense. I wonder, because like they are created separately, and the energy conservation plan is where you're going to find like I would call them initiatives, like the energy savings initiatives, how we're going to measure them. So I view it as in my mind, like the climate change action plan is really your overarching umbrella. And then the energy management plan is, I think, similar to what you're saying, is that's how we're actually going to execute and track and measure our goals and objectives. So they do really fit together. And I don't know, has Peterborough been doing anything? I shouldn't say doing anything. Have they held any meetings this year about how they're going to manage the plan, how they're going to engage the other municipalities?
Yeah, so the city of Peterborough and the county of Peterborough have kind of split off on their initiatives. So I think the city of Peterborough is kind of doing their thing. The county is together. They're as it's a climate change steering committee. Brian and I are both on that, but it focuses more on the township initiative as opposed to the city is there because we have Green Up that is part of the committee. But I think we were looking to engage Green Up, which tend to be more city focused. We were engaging them to come out and do some more programming in the townships and through the county. It's not an overly active committee, would you say that, Deputy Mayor Huntley?
Well, I've only seen one meeting,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it didn't seem that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there are there were a few initiatives that we have looked at to do jointly. There was an initiative that they were trying to get together for electric vehicle chargers. But I think that kind of fell by the wayside. So I think predominantly they look for initiatives that can be done jointly. So if you look through the climate change action plan, there's a few things that are through the overarching plan, the greater Peterborough area plan that us as a municipality, we would have no control over, that we would support whatever initiative is done at the upper tier. So I think that committee is there to kind of see if they can move forward with some of those items.
Okay, so I
Kind of a
think,
wishy-washy answer, I realize.
no, it's reality.
Yeah,
I think,
Yeah.
and having the context is helpful.
Yeah.
So how about and I'm probably going to fudge this, but do a motion to accept the updates that Bridget is bringing forward today, and then we'll proceed with doing strategic planning and plan for 4 sessions with the goal of updating the energy conservation plan, the municipal energy conservation plan.
Do we want to define 4 sessions, or we just want to wait and see?
Does that be before the August renewal date?
I don't think so. Yeah. Is that a hard date, the August date? Sorry, we just had a question about whether the 4 sessions, A, are necessary, and B, do they have to take place before August? So Kyle,
I can check into that.
I think August is kind of a soft date. It's just a date we're shooting to, so.
Didn't ask if they were necessary.
What's that?
There were 4 stages of.
Oh, no, I meant yeah, no, I just meant whether we needed 4 sessions or whether we could kind of combine a few.
My only recommendation through you to you, Leslie, would be that we remove the number of sessions just in case we can do it in 2 or it takes us 8. So then we don't lock ourselves into that. But I think that would bring us back a strategic planning process
Perfect.
to approach it if the committee supports that.
Perfect.
And then
Yeah, you could do your first.
Can we stop the screen sharing?
Sure we can.
Sorry,
Hmm.
sorry, Kath, I read your message out loud instead of just.
No worries, but I do have my hand up when it's my turn to speak. Or I did have it up. I meant to have it up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I think just for efficiency and for easy access, could we have, like, I know that a lot of these documents are available on the Pavan Monaghan website, but the actual plan is not. Not that I've been looking on the website under plans, and there is nothing there for the energy conservation and demand management plan. It's not coming up for me at all. So I just think for all of the documents that we need to be accessing regularly as a committee, if we had like a shared drive of some type where we could access those easily, our agendas and our minutes could go into that.
I think they go on the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that Cindy, you guys post that all to the township website. Right
We
now.
can send the links to it. I think you're right, Kath. I'm not sure the demand energy management plan is on the website. Which is just probably an oversight on our part, which we can put it up and then provide the links to the committee. Does that make sense?
Sure, that's fine. I know that we can scroll through. And I don't mean to sound needy, but I have a lot going on, like to have a portal where I can go and be effective and use my time effectively as opposed to navigating the website just makes my.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes it easier for you.
Are we, is there any privacy concerns if we set up something like a Google Drive? So people can go in, look at the documents, add their comments, they're updated in real time, the whole group can see it. I don't know if that is allowed by the township in terms of from a privacy perspective.
I think, to be fair, I think the best thing to do is we'll send the links. I don't even know what that would look like to even approach it. It's the county that manages our IT system. It is a very secure system to allow external addresses and people to have access to our network. I don't know if they would let us do that, to be honest, but I guarantee you that from a staff perspective, we can send all of these links out and we can put everything in one compiled email if that helps any. You were right, Leslie, everything is on the website and we can search it by like sustainability, but we only have 2 things on there so far because we're so new. We don't have a lot of background information, but that climate change action plan for sure, we circulated that with the first agenda, but we can definitely put it all in one nice email so that whenever you guys are looking for it, it can be like the resources for sustainability and then we can just flip it out. I think those will be our 3 main documents. And then if there's anything after that, then we can just share it as a group if that makes the most sense.
Yep, okay. Would there be an issue with me creating like not with the township, so separately, just myself creating a Google Drive place where the committee can go and add their comments to these documents? I mean, like they're publicly shared documents. So I'm not talking about sharing private information, like residential information, but just the working documents.
So because the working documents are kind of in a draft format and they're attached to the agendas, I think it's fair that it is already out in a public forum. I can take that away and follow up with you, Leslie, to find out if there's any securities or concerns with creating external Google Drives and then connecting us all. I don't really know how that works, to be completely truthful. But definitely they're working documents. There will always be attached to these agendas. We'll always have them there. Like after we do our update again, whatever Bridget and Kyle decide to add for whatever section we decide to do, that will be added on to this agenda. And then we can, it is always, anything that's public is out in the public domain. So I would hate to create a situation where we might have overlapping documents, but I can take that away and let you know what
let's discuss it, because it's not for viewing, it's for updating. So it just makes things easier. Everybody can have their comments, everybody can see them. But yeah, let's connect on that after. And then Kath, I can send you the documents after too. I have them saved with, they have my comments, but I'm happy to share them with you if that would be helpful.
Okay, I do have them. I just, because sometimes I'm at home, sometimes I'm at work, and the folder is on top of my fridge at home.
So if it's in one email and we call it, like we label that email sustainability links or plans, then we can Google that in our email and then it'll always be in everyone's email. Maybe we'll start with that and go from there. Okay.
Okay.
So I think we currently have a quasi motion on the table. I think we're trying to figure out if we want to lock in on one specific section that you want staff to come back to focus on. Is that?
I just wonder if that'd be easier for us to think of the more effective for the next meeting, or if we, and maybe left for what to bring.
If I can just add my 2 cents in as an outsider, I would think that we should just kind of pause the updates and create the strategic planning process and then come back and have at it and see where we end up.
Yeah. You guys just figure out what you want to bring back. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more just a structure that so it would be kind of an interactive session that we would have. And we would kind of just identify some of the information that Kath is looking for, like what the actual plan is, and, we can add some information about the climate change action plan, and then we can start it by what, maybe even just what are goals and objectives. There's a set format that you can follow. I haven't got it off the top of my head, but I can put it together. We can sit and discuss it as staff, and then we can bring it to the committee and at that first meeting, and we can either start the process or we can massage it to suit our needs. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Am I talking too low? Sorry.
No, Bridget, I can hear you you and Cindy perfectly. The other.
Because
Yeah.
we're the loud mouths.
Ever since kindergarten, every report card.
Yeah, talks too much in class, I know.
Yeah.
So Craig has just joined us. So to bring you up to speed, Craig, I think the committee's taking the approach that we're going to try to break down the updates to the energy conservation demand management plan as a strategic approach. And then staff's going to bring back a concept on what that strategic approach looks like.
Yeah.
So the motion on the table is that the Sustainability Advisory Committee receive the updated energy conservation demand management plan for information and request staff to bring back a strategic planning process approach to update the energy conservation and demand management plan.
Well said.
That was perfect, Cindy.
So I will just need a mover and or through you, Chair. We will need a mover and a seconder.
I'll be the mover. Do we have a seconder? Kath is the seconder.
Perfect. And then I'll call the recorded vote. Bill Cox,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Anna Frytruck, D'Amico. Perfect. And Deputy Mayor Huntley. Fantastic.
Okay.
So do you want me from a perspective, do you want me to share the agenda again, or would you rather leave it like this, Kath? We can bring the questions up leave it like this, is that? Okay. So everybody has the questions in front of them anyways, as committee members.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 So then we are moving on to agenda item 6.2. The committee comments for the township's park and recreation plan. And I guess, how best would you suggest to approach this, Cindy, from a committee perspective? Do you want to read out each question and do a round table, or how would you guys like to get through this in the most efficient manner?
So if I can jump in, we actually went through this process with the BIA this morning. And so what kind of worked really well was to keep it pretty concise.
Right.
The motion we would be looking for is that the Sustainable Advisory Committee submits the following feedback for the Township of Cavan-Monaghan Parks and Rec Master Plan Vision 2035. Our question 1, from the perspective of this committee, our top 2 or 3 priorities for improved recreation facilities and parks within Cavan-Monaghan include, and we list what they are. So, and then we can take the same approach with question 2. So with question 1, you're being asked, so is everybody familiar with what the Parks and Rec Vision 2035 is? Have you
Yes.
had an opportunity to go through it? You've kind of seen some stuff. Before we get into it really deep, I will remind everybody that there is a community forum next Wednesday, May 10th.
Mhm.
And the same kind of questions are going to be asked of individuals. So it's
Right.
more for an individual response. You don't go to attend to provide your own as a committee. That's the intent behind these motions. But if you want to attend as an individual, I'd encourage you to do that. So essentially what we're looking from this committee's perspective, what are your priorities for parks and rec facilities? They can be existing, they can be new. So, you know, I won't share what the BIA listed, but, you know, obviously their concerns were centered around one specific area, right? The Millbrook, downtown Millbrook, because that's their area of influence, right? So what are your thoughts? This one is specifically for the whole township. The
Right.
next one is for the arena.
Do you guys want to do a round table and go around? So would you like to start? Or you don't have to, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Just wondering if we could each kind of share our perspective from the sustainability lens, and then decide on a, you know, firm answer.
Yeah. That worked well this morning, so yeah. Yeah.
First phase is that the demand from an older group of population, and that their needs are outdoor based, trail based, which works really well with, I think, management's committee to keep things outdoor, nature based, low to no power, energy inputs required. And then for the updates, providing recreation opportunities for younger or more intensive, to keep the same set of priorities, nature-based, low to no power, if possible. I wrote just keeping, if there's opportunity to make circular planning involved. So if a space is if we're updating a space, how do we make sure that the input into that are used in other places, maybe down the road, or can have a future planning sense? I hope I'm answering the question right. Going first.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Who wants to go next?
Craig, do you want to go next? Is Craig in the room? I didn't even see.
Craig here.
Yeah.
He's not here.
Question, sorry, Kyle just had a question.
Oh, sorry.
Just I noticed there is a push towards keeping any development circular, and it's kind of a big idea at this point, but like if you have a swing set in one place and 10 years from now it no longer works there, that space is different, then can we move it? Can it turn into something else? I know that Green Up just put in a play structure that's just logs, I think, or like logs that kids can climb all over it. So obviously that can just rot in its next life. Or like, what is the next life of the things we're going to be implementing? If it is a soccer dome or something like that, what could that become after its first is something, I guess, that I think.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we're having some connectivity issues. Kath and I can't hear.
So maybe pull that chair, right? Just give us 1 second. I think pull that chair. Sorry, this happened to me at our last meeting. It's just we have to congregate around the sphere a little better. Yeah. And maybe that will help. I don't.
They're trying to mandate circular building. So making sure that each concrete block is able to either be turned into something else or reused in another building next. I guess I'm not sure of the science of it. I don't know how it becomes anything else next, or if they need to make sure they're designed in a way that just have a longer life. And the other thought I had was just to, if we are purchasing anything, to look to local businesses, try to keep the economy within the township as much as possible.
That's great.
Very good.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I think Craig.
Kath,
Oh, Kath. Oh, sorry, Kath.
No?
No, it's okay. I can go or I can wait till after Craig. It's no problem.
I don't think Kath can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, was that a go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the question about the priorities, my default, my sort of mode of responding to this was to look at that Vision 2035 survey result and looking at the requests that were brought in by that survey. So what the community expressed as being their priority needs were around, you know, the top items were the outdoor or the indoor pool, a splash pad, trails. So I looked at that list. I don't feel like being on the committee, my role is to make any decisions around that. But what I'm suggesting is we look at what the community has asked for. And then along with that, we need a sort of a matrix of what the demands are and what the costs are. And I don't know if there's a budget. I don't know how much that budget would be, but I feel like that the site of the old arena being right in the center of the city, it can respond to multiple aspects of that ask, you know, like it could be a farmer's market area. It could be a youth rec center. It could be a multi-purpose building if it were to be renovated.
So what
Right
would-
now, sorry?
Go ahead. Oh,
No,
wait,
like right now, my understanding is that it's had a dual purpose as being an indoor soccer and lacrosse area, which is great, but that's like prime real estate in the center of the city. And I feel like that could be happening at the new community center.
So, and that is kind of part of question 2. So that conversation, I think there's options there that we're being asked to rank. And then you're given the opportunity to add additional comments as part of that. I think what they're looking right now, this is still a phase 1. So it's still kind of a blue sky type of thing. You know, recognizing that you've seen what the community's asked for, but you as a member on this committee, what would you say would be your top 2 or 3 priorities for improved facilities and parks? And right now, like phase 2 and 3, you're going to get down to the weeds. You're going to get into the cost scenarios and the concept plans and all of that. And there's going to be community consultation when it comes to that point. Right now, we're still kind of just blue skying it.
Okay, but I still have a question around this because what I read about the demographics of the community and what Millbrook was going to look like in 2030, 2035 and beyond, it's kind of my sense of was this is what the community is going to look like if we just keep doing everything in the same way. But some communities are very proactive in attracting newcomers to the area. So like you can actually design your future. So my question is, has any of that ever been done? Do we want to be a demographic of senior citizens and, you know, or do we want to attract young families? Do we want to attract certain aspects of the economy? Like, I feel like let's not plan for what the future holds by default of doing nothing. Like, what does the community envision being? And is there going to be an active plan to attract people to the community?
Yeah, I think that I understand the thought process, and it kind of made me think when I've been looking at this Parks and Recreation plan as it is in the process, I keep coming back to Kevin's, I would guess, tagline, like have it all right here. And I had a similar thought process as you, Kath, in terms of we're in the position where we can really come out and become a very green community. We can really increase recreation, you know, attract families. So just to, I guess, at a high, as an example, like my 3 were very, very high level and very short. I said, what I'm thinking about is increased walkability, increase green spaces, make them accessible, and focus on water conservation. So those were my 3 like high buckets. And I think if I'm interpreting your comments, Kath, it's more your suggestion would be to let's have a strategic plan for the community and figure out how we want to market ourselves, how we want to attract people, and what the future looks like.
that's kind of like that pie in the sky piece. If I were to look at the township and the village of Millbrook itself, I would say having a central core that is like a community hub, focus on local agriculture, so like locally grown food, having that farmers market that is extremely accessible to the community. And I like those would be my top two. And I do agree with like just the whole, some of this stuff doesn't cost a lot, like having a really great trail system. We already have really great trails, but if there was more walkability and there was more opportunity to explore nature, that was one of the priorities. And I don't see that as being the same type of cost as building a new structure or a $5 million renovation to the old arena.
Thanks.
Craig, did you want to go?
Sure. I think one thing I'm struggling with a little bit is just what's in scope in terms of this committee and our focus on Parks and Rec. So whether or not I'm not saying I'm not supportive. I'm definitely supportive of like farmers markets and water conservation for certain. But is that within the scope of a Parks and Rec plan? Like that's what we're speaking to here.
I think, sorry, go ahead.
So maybe
No,
it's just
I
some
think-
clarity
yeah.
from.
So, I think definitely like water conservation could be part of the Parks and Rec plan. Like we're talking about people wanting pools, splash pads, and then also increasing walkability. That can come hand in hand with increasing green spaces, having, accessible trails. And
Something else that the plan talked about was like the cultural aspect of like hosting festivals is also a recreational opportunity for the town. So if we wanted to direct, like I know there's water festivals all over in townships. So youth education being a focus and water conservation being a focus could like to host those educational opportunities.
I see. So the parks plan, like as a feature of, right?
If I
Whether
can-
that's natural or artificial.
If I could make a suggestion, like I think what they're looking for is something pretty specific. So, for question one, in terms of, and what I'm hearing is that is a lot of outdoor nature-based facilities, enhanced trail systems, a community hub, where people could access, could gather, could access local food, that sort of thing. As part of question two, there is kind of a caveat. If your committee has additional suggestions and comments, I think it's actually kind of a quasi question three about recreation needs or the Millbrook Arena, provide them. So that's maybe the opportunity to say whatever facilities you're considering as part of this plan, can we have a look at things that are low energy, that are circular, that incorporate circular planning, that enhance walkability within the community. So you get those themes captured as part of that, as part of your comment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'll just continue. So I think I agree with all the priorities I'm hearing. What I think I'd like to see though too are some actions to support those priorities, right? So while we recognize, green space is a priority, what actions can we take towards integrating green space into our Parks and Rec plan? For instance, we know that there's been some significant development in the last few years in Millbrook and in Cavan, Monaghan. We know that there will continue to be significant development, but we know that development's constrained, right? It's constrained by National Heritage System, it's constrained by regulated areas. The opportunity to me is looking at how those constrained areas can then be integrated further into the plan. Obviously, that requires commitment of the proponents for those plans but also I think it takes some work on the side of the township to find out, is there an ability to integrate those constrained features into the Parks and Rec plan to support the expansion of trails. And I know that we have an extensive trails network, which would be my suggestion for another priority. But is that trail network accessible? Right? We use the term walkable, but is walkable accessible, right?
That's true.
And
Yeah.
I think there's a lack of accessible trails. And I want to come to suggest that we need to consider what some other municipalities are doing in terms of, paving trails. But I think there's ways to ensure that those trails are accessible to an aging population and to individuals who may require multimodal assistance, right, for accessing trails.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to some of those individuals in the community who are currently unable to use many of the wilderness trails, right, because of accessibility issues. So I think that should continue to be a priority. And I think there's an ample opportunity to look at expanding our trail network for multimodal efforts, right?
What, Craig, can I just ask?
For
what do you
accessibility,
like
yeah.
Constrained land, like what would be an example of that? Are we talking about, because it's environmentally protected?
So I use the term like national heritage system.
Okay.
Because you know that the official plan has a natural heritage system that constrains where developers can build, right? But there's also regulated areas, so certain natural features, wetlands, or other regulated features like floodplains, right, are not open for development. So rather than just continue to see those areas as inaccessible, private, that's, I think, becomes an opportunity. If the developer is not interested in or able to develop those lands, that can become a priority for green space expansion. So that's a specific action though, right? I'm getting into beyond priority, I'm getting into actual actions.
Yeah.
I see it as, sorry.
No, go ahead, Bridget.
So I see it actually, the priority for improved recreation facilities and parks, existing and new, is to enhance multimodal solutions into whatever you're doing, right? Accessibility, specifically accessibility.
Specifically accessibility.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, yes, but, so if I can see that as being a priority, that, facilities need to be accessible, right? Whatever those are. I think you're also saying, let's not let these constrained lands just sit there. How can we incorporate them if they're not being used for anything else? How can we incorporate them into our parks and facilities inventory? Is that,
For sure.
am I paraphrasing too much? Or?
Absolutely. Policy documents that we can refer to specifically to the township. For instance, we have a trails master plan that's a couple decades old.
2010.
Right? So we could leverage, that document should be leveraged. There's ample information in that document for proposed trails expansion.
Okay.
To support the Parks and Rec plan.
Okay.
I'm not certain whether or not that document is leveraged adequately in the planning process. So that's a question. But I think it could support some of these priorities for certain trails expansion.
Okay.
For sure.
I think that's
But
really
again, it takes a cooperative working, right, a relationship with those who are submitting plans, right?
Building.
Absolutely.
Trade-offs, space.
Exactly. Because we know now there's not necessarily adequate parkland being put forward, mandated. Thanks. Everything there. But it's not being mandated. So we need to take it onto ourselves as a township to ensure that we're it goes back to somebody's comment on this on the table up here, but we need to take it onto ourselves, right? What is the vision? Because if we rely on policy, right, we may not achieve that vision.
Yeah, there's a lot of constraints and it's changing too, building bills and what we can actually do, but I get
Yeah. We definitely want those new communities to have alternatives for accessing our village core or community hub if it becomes that, rather than cars, right? Encourage pedestrian access as much as possible. Right?
Is there a desire to keep anything or to focus on renewable energy in any of the projects that they take forward?
I think they're not there yet, right? Because that'll come as part of maybe phase 3, where they actually get down to the nitty gritty. Yeah, I think that's probably a really good point to bring forward, though, as part of any information that you want to add to these questions. Sorry if I'm turning my head, guys. But you could add that as, you know, whatever these priorities that we're putting forward with the understanding that we'd like to see renewable energy incorporated. We'd like to see the consideration of circular planning and that sort of thing. So it brings that message forward to the consultant.
So what priorities do you have now, Bridget, captured?
So, both Cindy and I have been writing feverishly, so I have, so outdoor nature-based facilities, trails expansion, and there's kind of 2 points to that, to incorporate constrained lands into our parks facility inventory, and then to incorporate accessibility in our existing trail system. So specifically multimodal solutions. Am I getting that right?
Sure.
Right, sure, yeah. And then a community hub. And I think the other kind of priorities I think we talked about, we could add into suggestions and comments where we get into the use of low energy, circular planning, renewable energy, that sort of thing. Does that sound good, guys?
I think there's a couple, to me, I think that all sounds good and meaningful, and it's at a high level of, you know, I think what the question is asking. Just on I'm going to call it item 1 about incorporating accessibility into the trails, expanding the trails, this premise of walkability. You know, I think that within the Parks and Rec plan, as they're going through the planning process, one thing that I would like to keep them mindful of is increasing the walkability of the community. So cut down on car traffic. So where are we building recreational facilities? Are they in a place where, you know, the bulk of the community could walk? For example, the reason I have that on my brain is thinking about this new community center. There's 2 new subdivisions coming in here over the next 10 years. I just think it would be amazing if all those families could just walk to soccer practice, or they could walk to baseball, or they could walk to gymnastics, and cut down on all that car traffic. So I guess my priority would be perhaps under the smart planning, smart development priority, in that, you know, we keep walkability as a factor in mind when we're planning out like where these recreational developments going to go.
So could we phrase it that we take a community hub based approach to locating facilities to encourage more walkable communities?
Yeah, I think that, yeah,
Does
perfect.
that sum it up?
Thank you.
Are we addressing our priorities? I think.
Yes.
Got a motion beside it?
Okay. Okay. So I think the motion would read that the Sustainability Advisory Committee submit the following feedback for the Township of Cavan-Monaghan Parks and Recreation Master Plan Vision 2035. From the perspective of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, the top 3 priorities for improved recreation facilities and parks within Cavan Monaghan would include more outdoor nature-based facilities, trails expansion that incorporates constrained lands into park facility inventory and enhances accessibility to provide multimodal options, and a community hub-based approach to facilities location that would encourage a more walkable community.
Is that
Yeah.
the first part or all three?
That's
Oh,
1,
3.
2, 3.
Yeah,
Oh,
1,
that's
2,
1, 2. Yeah, here we go. 2, 3, yeah. I feel like I've butchered your,
I think that for item number 2.
yeah,
Transit expansion to incorporate constrained lands. That sounds good.
Well, I think that hits it, although I would. It's not just the trail.
yeah,
it's the-
that's
the
what I'm worried about.
Constrained area itself, right?
Yeah,
Trail would be one feature within
yeah.
that
So-
green space.
So maybe we change it to incorporate constrained lands into the parks inventory to enhance accessibility, to provide multi-mobile, blah, blah, blah. I forget what that word was you just said. And to investigate or to expand the trails or as part of the trails expansion.
I think the point too is, you know, just by adding them, like by adding the land to the parks inventory of the township, I think that's one piece. The accessibility component, you know, is the other.
That's a priority on its own, would you think?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
The
okay.
constrained lands.
I personally think that because I have to use a device depending on my health from time to time, and I'm not able to access any of the trails around here. So I shouldn't say I'm
Right.
not able to. I'm rarely able to. So personally, I think accessibility should be a priority. I don't know that it's, a sustainability full priority but I think that it fits in nicely with enhancing the trails and enhancing the green spaces. And what we mean by enhancing is improving accessibility, because we really want to service a larger base of the community.
So if I were to take another stab at it, I would say maybe, your priorities are to incorporate constrained lands into parks facility inventory, number 1.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't have to be number 1, but it's just,
Yeah.
number 2 would be trails enhancement and expansion to provide for more accessible multimodal solutions. That's not the right word. And then your 3 would be community hub-based approach to facilities location to encourage a more walkable community.
I think we're close. I think it's just, we want to be sure that the motion is clear.
Yeah.
I would think that in the first one, I would like to see expand the green space and consider opportunities for integrating constrained areas into that inventory, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So that because we don't use the word expand, then we're limiting the motion to just areas that are constrained. I don't think we want to get ourselves in cornered into that.
Yeah, and I think you're looking for more like utilize those lands as opposed to just incorporating them, because then they can become a part of it. That's just not you.
Yeah.
Like it's be another field that's.
But also considered opportunities for expanding our green space, right? Publicly accessible green space. And that leaves us some flexibility, right? And then I think I'm
Can
quite.
we break these down one at a time just to make
Oh,
sure we're
okay.
good? So we'll
Nature-based,
Okay,
outdoor.
Nature-based, where I'm thinking that Lisa's comments can get rolled in there to the additional suggestions, because I don't want to lose the whole low energy circular plant. All of that. I think those are key messages that need to kind of. Yeah, no, I don't want you to think I'm No, I think that those comments should go there is because I think those are themes that we need to reinforce. This committee, is that? So I'm gonna circle back, that's gonna be a separate motion on your own.
Number 3, yeah.
Okay, so have you got?
Yep,
Cindy,
expand green space and consider opportunities to incorporate constrained lands into the parks and facilities inventory. Or do you want to say parks and recreation? What do you want to say?
What were we addressing?
Person.
Parks and Rec.
Perfect. Parks and recreation inventory. Okay, so there's your number 1.
And then what was the wording on number 2? I think that was the accessibility point.
Yep, for the trails, enhance and explore and provide more accessible multimodal solutions, but I don't know if that was the word that we had.
I think we should probably add in something like barrier free. Accessibility.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for this. Okay.
More accessible barrier free instead of multi,
No, I think
Yeah.
multimodal
For sure,
probably
for
needs to
sure.
be in there too, yeah.
I need to Google it then.
Is there an accessibility committee for the township that also will look at this?
Not yet.
Not quite yet. So we just rolled over to 10,000 people this year. So once you hit 10,000 people, it is a requirement to have an accessibility advisory committee, and staff are very diligently working on it. And we hope to bring something this summer to council.
Okay, so then I just want to make sure we're not duplicating what would be brought by.
Can't see me at all.
Yeah.
Not even on the screen.
Sorry, say that again.
No, I just want to make sure we're not duplicating something that would be brought
Right.
forward by another committee.
Yeah,
No, not at this current.
okay,
Okay.
okay, so. Number 3,
Yeah,
Number
before
3.
they do,
oh, sorry,
I just wanted to make sure that included regarding trails, I think I know from reading the community comments that it's also expansion of the trail network is still there. I just want to make sure that is.
The trails enhance and expand. Yep.
Enhance and expand.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay.
Provide more accessible, multimodal and barrier-free trails.
yeah,
And, I might actually, in thinking about that, expand. So yes, definitely the trails accessibility, is applicable and should be a focus. But I would, I think it doesn't hurt to just say overall, we would like to see any new buildings, any new facilities, that accessibility is a requirement that needs to be met. Because
Absolutely include that with it.
yeah, so can we include that as part of your additional suggestions to
Yeah.
assist? Yeah, so if we included that as one more thing, accessibility.
because I'm thinking,
Overall.
definitely the trail system, but there's a lot of children as well who have, potential physical limitations. And we want to make sure that we're designing to, be as inclusive as possible.
For sure.
Yeah, I personally think that the AODA legislation
I
takes
agree.
care of that for us. Like, I think
It
that is
doesn't.
now the new, that is
Yeah.
the new way forward. And I don't, in 2023, we're not going to design something that won't fulfill all of those. It doesn't mean that we don't just meet it, we can exceed it, we can surpass all of those standards. But I don't think that that's something that wouldn't be, there's no one who's building anything now that's not accessible.
That's not true. Like it's
From a
accessible.
municipal standpoint, I would.
Yeah, I think there's doing the bare minimum, and then there's actually, making a person be able to operate completely independently, and they're different.
Sure, no, and I get that. I have a background in accessibility and diversity and equity. And I, anyway, that's fine. It's a keep it in there.
You can state what was- So it's not this.
Yeah, so facility prioritize accessibility, overall accessibility, renewable energy, circular planning and low energy.
And that's
as
going to go
part
in
of their
the
plan.
right, and that will go in the other section, right, Bridget?
Yeah, suggestions, yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
okay.
So I think we're good with number 2 then? Trails expansion and enhancement to provide more accessible, multimodal and barrier-free trails.
Okay.
Okay, and number 2 would be to create a community hub-based approach to encourage a more walkable community.
So it's gonna be three.
That would be number 3, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, sorry.
no, I think I'm just wondering about the term walkable, maybe we can, it means the same thing, but, encourage improved walkability perhaps, so that it's an overarching theme within the community.
So, say that again. Cindy.
So it would be to create a community hub-based approach to encourage and improve a more walkable community.
So I think you need to say, community hub-based approach to facilities location. To encourage a more walkable community, would you say,
Yeah.
guys? Yeah. So that so you're not on location.
So- Sorry,
Yeah.
if we're being sensitive to ability, then I don't think we should be using the word walkable. If we're talking about accessibility, and then we shouldn't make assumptions that people, if we're gonna take this approach, then let's demonstrate that we've thought this through.
Yeah,
That's
so what's another, I mean, I say that's valid, like, I agree with you, so car-free,
Less vehicles.
good. Yeah, what about less vehicle centric?
perfect.
Does that work for you, Cap?
I'm exploring.
Okay,
Brainstorming,
yeah. You could just say, reduce the reliance on
vehicles.
vehicles, yeah. But well, gas powered, fuel based vehicles, right?
I mean, I think if we say, like, in an effort to reduce the reliance on vehicles or reduce vehicle traffic, I think either one of those capture the intent of it, which is that we want people to be able to get from A to B not using a vehicle.
So create a community hub-based approach to facilities locations in efforts to reduce vehicle traffic.
Yeah. That work?
Yeah, I think that's it captures exactly what the intent of is, of increasing walkability. What's the goal of that? Reduce vehicle traffic. So I think that's perfect.
Great job. So 1, 2, and 2B.
Okay, we got one. So question 2. We're being asked, we're presented with 4 options for the future of the old Millbrook Arena. So we're being asked to discuss and rank the 4 options from 1 to 4. So what would be, if you had to pick, what would be your first choice, would be your second, would be your third, would be your fourth. So I'll just, if you want, I can read them out. So the first one is to invest in the order of 5.25 million into the building and site to maintain the facility as status quo for another 25 years and to renovate it to meet accessibility requirements. This investment would only support winter season uses that are similar to current uses. So for example, soccer, lacrosse, and cricket. I don't think we have cricket, but heads up, maybe it's coming. Assuming current uses are maintained, the annual operating deficit will be in the order of $30,000 or more annual inflation. So that's option 1. Option 2 would be to invest considerably more than 5.25 million into the building and site, both the inside and the out, to extend its life for another 25 years and increase its functionality and appeal to support a few more uses. Possible uses will depend on how the interior might be able to be transformed. The intent would be to have a facility that could be utilized year-round. Even if well utilized year-round, there will be likely an annual operating deficit, and limited parking will continue to be a major shortcoming. Just as an addendum to that, and maybe it's not appropriate for me to say this, but I do think that community centers and arenas and facilities like that, I think they tend to operate on a deficit. That just is the nature of the beast. So just throwing that out there. Option 3, replace the building with a high quality downtown community park that may accommodate some combination of facilities, such as a farmer's market, an outdoor storage or gazebo, pathways, gardens, trees, an area for quiet reflection, a picnic area, an outdoor exercise gym, a water play facility, an unstructured grass area, etc. With the proposed closure of Needler's Lane, the park would be integrated into the surrounding parkland and facilities. So the Needler's Mill, the pond, the Millbrook Valley Trails, and walkways would link it to the downtown. And our last option is to sell the property, allow for a developer or business opportunity to invest in the downtown, which could support a new revitalization plan and provide more commercial or housing development. So those are your 4 options. Where would you rank them?
I'm not sure if you can see or not through you, Leslie, but Craig has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
It's just good.
I just had a question for clarification on option 4. The wording here, is this appropriate or accurate in terms of considering the property for commercial or housing development?
Yep. You can build the floodplain. You just have to build the floodplain specifics.
So it is a special policy area, and I'm familiar with the special policy around. But I just so everybody's aware, Deputy. I think
Kath has her hand up.
That housing is not standard housing, that would.
Absolutely.
Right, it's just so everybody's on the same
Yeah,
page.
you can't just build any house. It has to be very specifically built.
For certain, so I think it was Kath earlier mentioned, I think she used the term prime real estate. I'm not sure, and Kath, I don't know if you used prime real estate in regards to that property earlier. Right, so I don't know, I'm not a real estate agent, but I'm not sure I would consider that prime real estate.
I'm talking about the location.
Okay,
Location wise, that's premium. Like, we have to think about the Millbrook of tomorrow, not the Millbrook of today.
absolutely, but I'm just saying that I just feel like that statement there, just so everybody's on the same page, it could be a little misleading when we think.
Yeah. I mean,
It's not standardized commercial or housing planning.
So what,
That's all I want to say.
Craig,
that
could you
one.
just kind of, I missed a little bit of yours starting comments there, but just so I can recap, what we're saying is that because the land the arena is on is already considered a special policy area, there's, I guess, a different, because of the floodplain, yes, there's a different approach that would have to be taken if anything were actually to be constructed on the land.
Can you just describe what you mean? Like, does that mean no condo?
No, it's just, what it really means. Yeah, so if the floodplain evaluation is that it can flood about 3 feet, it means you can't have an opening in your building below 3 feet.
Mhm.
So everything would have to be either on pillar or floodproof. And so it would have to be constructed differently than you would construct just a normal structure.
Okay.
I think
And
people
it's-
feel that you can't
Honestly,
build.
it adds a lot of cost.
Yeah.
I was gonna make that point.
So it's not,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it's not. Yeah.
but it's not impossible.
Widely leveraged.
In meaning that it's like no one will buy it.
It means you'd have to know what you're getting into if you bought it. Right, so whatever you put forth as your building plan would have to go through a lot more scrutiny and everything. So every time there's something like that, it's like cha-ching.
This is what I read, and I wrote it down, if this helps, Lisa. My understanding is the province establishes the criteria and procedures for approval. A special policy area is not intended to allow for new or intensified development, site alteration, if a community has feasible opportunities for development outside of the floodplain.
Yeah,
Right.
thanks for bringing that up, because that was a point I was going to go to next. We have a hand up here that's been for a while.
Yep. Leslie, do you see Kath's hand up?
I do, sorry, Kath.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to explore option 4, in terms of was it ever contemplated rather than selling the property, to lease the land and to lease the land and the property and allow a private developer to work within set parameters, but to actually allow the municipality to keep the land, but allow the cost of whatever development is allowable to be taken on by the lessor?
I don't,
What the-
Yeah.
I guess sell or lease the property, I guess.
Yeah.
Could have been
Like, I'm not sure
involved.
I'm not sure who articulated these 4 options. I just don't know if that was even.
it's
Is
Robert
this from the
Lockhart.
Rethink group? Okay,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
know that, like, I'm just thinking about Trent leases. You know, you don't sell off land if you have the option to keep it and generate revenue from it and allow someone else to take on the cost of the project. But it's just a question of whether that's an option 5 or if that's a modification to option 4.
I think it's probably more application.
So if we were to rank them, like, Kath, if you were to go first, if you would like to, how would you rank them from 1 to 4?
So ranking them from the perspective of the sustainability committee.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of highlighted both options 2 and 3 as sort of my 2 preferences. I don't like the idea of option 4 if it was to sell the land. So that would be my last choice. And I guess, you know, if we're looking at, it's still a little bit vague.
So why would you, from a sustainability perspective, choose option 2 or 3?
So I'm thinking about the lifespan of the building and the fact that it would be brought up to become a more efficient building. And just the longevity of the building. If we're trying to reduce vehicle use, then parking's not even an issue.
Yeah,
It would be a contradiction. You know, it's the cost of it as well. So even though we're looking at this from a sustainability lens, it has to be sustainable financially as well.
yeah. See, I don't see options 2 or 3 as being sustainable, based on the priorities we kind of talked about. Just simply because we're talking about creating a hub, and I'm pointing in my house to the new community center, in case you guys wondering where I'm pointing to. I'm pointing to the community center, and I feel like that with our priorities that we identified in number 1, the community center on the top of the hill would be better suited to serve as that hub, to keep vehicle traffic out of the downtown core. There's ample parking up here. It encourages the walkability perspective when you have the bulk of your residents over the next 10 years relocating to the proximity of the existing community center. So I'm just wondering, you know, in terms of looping it back to our priorities, if these 2 fit that sustainability lens. I agree with you on the non-parking, but because there's not a lot of parking down there. And it's a huge investment to do all this stuff.
Yeah, I understand that there's a lot of new development up on the hill near the new community center, but there's also an old village where a lot of people live in all directions. So I still see the main street of Millbrook as being the center.
I agree completely. The downtown is for sure the center of the community. Just in terms of looking from a pure numbers perspective, in terms of kids and recreational, where will the bulk of them have to go to participate? Like, do we want to drive them all downtown, or do we want to drive them to a central location? That
Why
has
not walk to either?
So we already have a community center up on the hill and we're talking about this specific site. I think that the options are that we either invest in the building to give it a lifespan.
Mhm.
Either as a facility itself, with other uses, but giving it that 25-year lifespan, or the option 3 of creating a walkable, accessible, centralized area. It's near the creek or the river. I'm not sure what it is, but it's also just a nice outdoor. So I like option 2 and 3. We're allowed to disagree. Those are the options.
Oh, of course, I'm just here. I just, wanted to hear your thoughts behind, how that related to the priorities.
So the approach we took this morning, I don't know if it makes sense for you guys, but the approach we took this morning is we just kind of went around the table and said, okay, what is your first option? And we just said, we just recorded them, and the majority was the one that we went with. So
Sure.
if you want to take the same approach,
Sure.
what would be your, and if we start with Kath, what would be your first choice out of those 4?
You don't want us to.
Yeah, so I'm kind of straddling options 2 and 3. Again, difficult to make a decision when we don't see any values attached to option 3. So like we see the cost of options 1 and 2, no idea what would be the cost of option 3.
And also, Kath, I think we need to be aware that those costs are probably still estimates, right?
Oh, yeah.
There may be additional costs unforeseen. So we need to be aware of that.
Do you want to go? Wait, okay,
What I would rank as
Yeah.
not my top priority.
yeah,
I would definitely be looking at option 3.
okay.
But again, if you don't want to hear me. My point to it though, right?
I think we,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
I
an
think it's-
opportunity to
So-
discuss. We're just trying to get a consensus.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And then you can kind of massage it from there. Like if you go around and everybody's kind of leaning towards 3.
Yeah. I mean, I
and
think,
maybe 2 is your second option,
Yeah.
but you can kind of just,
One thing I recognize is that there's existing public services being provided by the building. And the property as it is right now, I think it's prudent for the township to consider. Whenever you remove one public service. We should consider, is there a replacement to their assessment of the value of that service? Right?
Yeah.
So we need to be prudent to make sure that we're addressing existing uses. Because it's not always acceptable to withdraw an existing public service and not have a replacement for it, right?
Mhm.
We have to be cognizant of that, and that's not really included in any of the options
yeah,
here.
yeah,
To
I
consider
agree
that,
with you, Craig. Yeah.
right? And I also think though that we need to be fiscally responsible.
Mhm.
So is investing in options 1 and 2 a fiscally responsible use of funding. I would also wonder, though, I know that there is funding opportunities, and I think there's still an open green infrastructure grant. I'm always curious if that existing funding could be applied for one of these other options. So for instance, option 3 is existing funding that's been, I don't know if it's fully approved through Infrastructure Ontario.
Yes, EIP stuff.
Yeah. Right, whether or not that's transferable on site, right?
Not sure.
Right, so those are all unknowns. So it's difficult to say, I just want one of these options when you don't consider the context. Right, and the contingencies, right? So, but that being said, I'm certainly supportive of option 3
for your first choice.
for my first choice from enhancing the existing business district and heritage district of the community. I have a hard time with the use of the term community hub, because hub implies to me a center point, right? And when I say community hub to one person, they think of the CMCC properties. Say community hub to another person, they're going to think of the heritage district.
Yeah.
right? So I think we're challenged with using that term, but anyways. Anybody else have any comments?
Um,
We didn't vote on something.
on the
Oh, I
term,
said option 3 for sure.
What about you, 2, 3, 4? Yeah,
Oh, right.
that's okay.
4.
are you guys waiting for me?
no, I think he's just pondering the ranking.
Okay,
for-
okay, I wasn't sure because sometimes it cuts out and I just wasn't sure.
While you're thinking, I don't think we got Kath's full four.
No.
I think we got your first option, which was 2 or 3. Do you want to put? Do you want
Number
to put
4
them in
was 4.
order? 4 was 4.
Right, Kath, I
think we
think
already
you said
got-
4 was off the mark, yeah. So number
Sorry,
1
so yeah,
If I'm limited if I have to make the choice,
Unfortunately, we'd like for you to.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Just rank
rather
it.
than just providing one option, I would then go, to options 1 and 2 is my second and third choice.
So 2 is 2 and 1 is 3? 4. We need to rank all 4. There's 4 options. We need to rank 1 through 4.
I just threw it in the chat.
Okay. Thanks, Kath.
Yeah.
So sorry, your option
2, 3,
2
1.
was
They're in order, 2, 3, 1, 4.
I would take option 1 as my 2, option 2 is my 3.
and 4 is 4.
Thank you for the- Yes,
Okay, okay. And you got Kath's.
Yeah, Kath is 1 is 3, 2 is 1, 3 is 2, and 4 is 4.
Okay. All right, Lisa, you're up.
I echo Craig's ranking. 3 is my number 1. I'm interested to know why Leslie considered number 3 not as sustainable.
You know what? I didn't, Lisa. I'm sorry. I mixed up 1 and 2. I didn't have it up and I couldn't see because I had the chat window in front of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the 3, 1, 2, 4.
Right. Deputy
Uh,
Mayor?
Oh, I haven't went yet, but you go ahead, Ryan.
I'm 3, 2, 1, 4.
3, 2, 1, 4. Yeah.
My logic is, yeah, I'd rather see that space used as open space and usable green space. 2 is my second, because if that building has to stay there, then we gotta do more with it.
Yeah.
And then obviously 4 is 4, so I hope 1 is here.
it's a great point. I mean, I think the 25 years, I see 25 years of both option 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's so
Neither's getting us.
option. Just bring that building to a state where it's usable today,
Right.
right? Where option 2 is, think ahead and be smarter and make better use of that building.
Yeah.
So 2 is obviously more expensive than 1. But yeah, I still stand by, if the building has to stay, then let's do something better with it.
Yeah.
So it's better just mean utilizing it year round.
Uh,
Like if you think of number 1 as like bringing it up to usable now. Couldn't that support expanded use?
No,
So-
useful now.
So it's not
Gotcha.
year round use.
Can I ask one other question here? Has there been any consideration on costing for option 3? And I would imagine it could be a staged plan,
Yeah,
but
So-
any idea on costing?
no is the short answer. And I think that'll come probably as part of phase 3, where you would see more costs applied.
Yeah.
Could we assume that option 3 would be considerably less than option 1 and 2?
Potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
I mean, you could plan for house and call it done.
You could do fundraising, like you could.
Down the cost. I'm just curious, just
Oh,
do you know how to figure?
I've seen numbers, but I can't.
It looks
So
like.
I think like in more detail, like that you're looking for, Craig, I think is coming as part of phase 2 and or 3, where there's going to be more community engagement, and they'll say, okay, well, you told us that you kind of preferred option 3. So here's what we're looking at, and here's kind of what are your thoughts, and maybe they might kind of give you a couple of options out of option 3 with a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the plan. Yeah, because we're not the consultants. We're just kind of trying to fulfill their wishes right now, his wishes. But my understanding is that's how it works. So Leslie, you're last.
Okay, so my ranking is, I think, probably the same as everybody else's. So number 3 is my first choice. Number 2, I guess, would be my second choice. If the building stays, it needs a complete overhaul. You know, make it fulfill more needs than it's doing right now. My option 3 would be 1. Option 4 is my 4. And the quick rationale behind that is, you know, I think maintaining that land that the arena is on, considering the limitations of like the fact that it's a floodplain, you know, the other considerations that would have to go into building there. I think that it would provide a town square, a communal space, and would meet the other priorities that we've identified. But I do want to clarify that with doing that, you know, to build on what Craig said, is if we're gonna, if that resource is going to be torn down, then the needs that it's meeting right now need to be met somewhere else.
So that's maybe something we can add as part of additional suggestions, is that we be mindful that whatever is being removed we have to find a place for it, right? Whatever activities.
And then as well,
Yeah.
the financial piece, you know, what's going to be the most financially responsible, I guess, approach, you know, to minimize any financial impact to residents.
And that's exactly what my caveat would be. It's existing impacts to public services provided communities, right? Community residents,
Mhm.
community users.
So I think and did you guys notice that CAF updated her? I know we already talked about that, but just wanted to make sure that we got everyone's votes down.
Yeah. So I think where we landed is that from the perspective of this committee, the ranking of the options are option 1, we ranked it number 3. Option 2, we ranked it 2. Option 3 was our first choice, and option 4 was our last choice. So our top 2 were options 3 and 2. Is that everybody concur? Okay. So the final piece is to, if your committee has additional suggestions and comments about recreation needs and or the Millbrook Arena. So I heard a lot. And I think this is where we want to capture some of the, obviously, Lisa's comments with regards to, I'm just trying to think if that need to focus on solutions that are give consideration to reduce energy use, renewable energy, fiscally responsible, do not impact existing users. So in other words, users are not displaced. Give consideration to circular planning. So I don't know if you want to kind of say cradle to grave or cradle to cradle type of use. I don't know. Was that another way of saying that? Cradle to cradle. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like if you don't see expire something, you see it kind of, you find alternate uses for it. So it doesn't get thrown out. Kind of the idea behind it. Anything I'm missing?
Prioritize overall accessibility.
Oh, yes, sorry. Prioritize overall accessibility. I think we missed that.
So I guess in terms of prioritizing accessibility, we know that what the mandate is with regards to public buildings and public properties. But I would, like to suggest that perhaps they, engage a consultant in accessibility when they're planning to, really get a good sense of what technologies are available, what services are available, what equipment is available that would suit the needs of adults, children, from an accessibility perspective as it pertains to recreational resources.
Okay. Okay.
And then I guess an additional suggestion would be, we talked about not displacing the users, but to consider having a recreational, I'm going to use the word hub, even though I know some of us don't like it, but having a recreational hub and expanding the services at the existing community center if we're talking about displacing users from the existing arena.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
From the Millbrook Arena, do we mean? Like the lacrosse people? Is that what you mean, Leslie, that when creating the recreational hub, when we expand it to ensure that the existing community center users are not being displaced? And by that, do you mean the people that are using the Millbrook Arena?
So yeah, so what I mean is that the people who are using the Millbrook Arena, that they're not displaced, and in doing so and finding them, the resource or the building or the, whatever it is that they need, consider centralizing that at the community center. And, there's other sports and besides hockey and soccer that we could potentially explore starting up in Millbrook, like maybe a running club, gymnastics that, could leverage if we had the additional space at the community center, the new one up on the hill, we could really, start expanding the types of programming that we have available in the community.
The other thing I'd be careful with is one of the existing user groups, and that is the lacrosse team. And I don't think it should be our responsibility to find that lacrosse team any home.
And that was my point.
Yeah,
Right.
but like they're not really our community.
No.
I mean, they're using our facility because they can. And
Okay.
it's good, but I don't think if we expand CMCC, that, putting in a lacrosse stadium specifically for them is, going to be high on the priority.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I say, I understand the logic there, and I think that's a good point.
But I do appreciate the point that whatever we do, like for community use.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we don't support.
Right. So, all those kids who play soccer, they need a place to go. We're going to have a growing population. So how can we plan, to have more activities or more different types of, recreational clubs start using our facilities?
So number 2 needs the revitalization of it said additional uses. What are some examples of what that would be? Because in option 1, kind of just fix it up enough. It mentions cricket, and you said we don't do cricket now. So that would be like an expansion. Yeah. So what would be like the other things that we would be able to do with this really nice?
We can't.
You turn it into a field, actual field.
Okay, and that's not what they would be doing in option 1, because they would just be kind of keeping the arena space as arena space. Okay.
Kath has a question.
Sorry, I just this may be trivial, but just on the way land is used, and maybe we don't have cricket today, but the
Oh,
population,
yeah.
the incoming population from South Asia is the
Yeah.
fastest growing new Canadian group in Canada. So cricket might be the biggest sport in 5 years in Millbrook.
Yeah, my comment there was just, I was just being kind of flip, so I do
No
apologize.
worries.
It could be, it is growing, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so,
So,
go ahead.
so in terms of a motion, I don't know, Cindy, if you, so what I have is, so that in terms of additional suggestions to assist with the plan, this committee recommends that when considering facilities, we consider consulting an accessibility consultant to ensure facilities are fully accessible. That we consider incorporating renewable energy, incorporating circular planning, that it is fiscally responsible and that there's no impact to existing users, i.e. users are not displaced.
I'm wondering, can we actually put forth a recommendation that explores expanding the community center? Like adding facility, I know we're saying, you know, we want to make sure that people aren't displaced, but can we go one step forward and say, you know, can we explore what can be added to the existing community center?
So that we consider the expansion of the existing community center.
Millbrook Arena, I think, right? Did you
No,
mean?
no,
This.
yeah.
Okay,
When I say community center, I mean the new community center.
Perfect, okay. Perfect.
So the expansion of the CMCC to ensure that there is no impact to existing users and or users are not displaced should
Yeah.
the arena
think-
be removed.
Yeah, I think that's one option, but then to further kind of bring in the cricket point is we don't know, you know, what the next big thing will be with regards to recreation. So can we encompass all these things that we're talking about with regards to the planning process, being financially responsible, and trying to be as inclusive as possible? Can we look at what we can do with the CMCC that will meet a wider range of recreational needs?
How about we consider expanding the CMCC to accommodate new and displaced users?
Perfect. Thank you for translating my gibberish.
Okay, so, when, if our additional suggestions are that when considering facilities, that we take into consideration hiring an accessibility consultant to ensure the highest standard of accessibility for our facilities, that we incorporate renewable energy into our facilities. We incorporate circular planning. We are fiscally responsible, and that we consider expanding CMCC to accommodate new and displaced users. How do we feel about that? Did I miss anything?
I think that they're succinct and high level enough to be put forward as suggestions at this point in the process.
Okay. Again, there is, as part of phase 2 and 3, there's going to be further consultations, so we'll probably be coming back to you with more questions or debate, discussion. So I will reiterate, there is a community pen. If you want to attend as a private citizen, that's a great opportunity to do that and discuss it further. Okay.
So we do need a mover and a seconder to summarize all of the parts we've just covered, question 1, question 2, and then our submission for part 3.
Okay, so I'll be the mover. Does anyone want to be the seconder?
Lisa.
Okay. And then do we need to do a live recorded vote, Cindy?
Absolutely, yeah. So Crawford,
Yes.
Anna Frychuk,
Yes.
D'Amico, Huntley,
Yes.
and Vilcock.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb, but I think we've decided, haven't we, that the next item, 6.3, will be part of our outcome as we go through
Strategic plan.
the strategic planning. So we just want to defer that until,
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Okay.
I think that the objective should be, I guess, Bridget, like very early on, probably one of the first things that we do as part of the strategic planning.
Yes, yeah,
framework.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Great, well.
Well-
Sorry, go ahead, Cindy.
I was just gonna say, I'll just make a note of that. We don't need a motion or anything. I'll just make a note that the committee has decided to discuss the goals and priorities as an outcome of the strategic planning process as we go through the, yeah, no problem. We don't need a motion for that.
Okay.
But we do for whatever we decide for our next meeting.
Well, before that, I just want to say thanks to everybody because it was really great conversation. And these are the types of conversations I like having when we can, debate back and forth and explore new ideas and look at things from a different perspective. So just wanted to say thanks for everybody for showing up and all the good feedback. And I learned a few new things today. So that's always positive. And then I guess, Cindy, what we're saying is we need a motion to agree on when we're going to meet next.
Correct. And you did
Um,
a great first job as a chair.
Great job as chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I was completely unprepared to do that today. So thanks for the support. When do we want to reconvene? I guess, Bridget, maybe we could start and work backwards in terms of you and your availability and your schedule. When would it be feasible to connect to start the strategic planning?
So I'm going on vacation.
They're letting you go on vacation?
Yeah, they let me out every once in a while. So I think this is we've been doing the first Thursday kind of quasi, haven't we? No, maybe? No, we haven't.
It would have
Okay.
been the 3rd, it was the 25th of April was our last meeting. In theory, yeah.
Okay.
But doesn't need to, we can do whatever.
Would it be okay if we kind of shot for the 3rd or 4th?
Cause that would be the
Oh,
Tuesday,
sorry, the
right? Are we gonna
Tuesday,
stick to
sorry.
Tuesdays? Does that work for the committee? If we stick to Tuesdays? This was just the ad hoc because of,
Because of our questions.
yeah, because of the questions, but does Tuesday generally work for everybody?
But I can be flexible if there's another.
Well, I shouldn't say,
Right, whatever.
yeah, like what time? Because I think Craig had posed a question about the time. We have in the past, I think we've been doing 2, but
1 till 3.
1 till 3,
Yeah.
sorry, 1 till 3, so.
So what, I guess let's do a quick round table. What time works best for everybody?
Anytime for
Anytime for us, we're here.
So 2 p.m. works good for everybody?
Well, my preference would be outside of my regular.
Okay, so like
hours.
evenings?
Yeah, but I, I'll go with the majority. I can work with it.
Okay,
I don't think Manny and Joanne can do night meetings based
Okay,
on Manny's
yeah.
schedule list, but we
I
can
do
confirm
it. I need to take time. Try to figure it out.
that. Okay.
Just dial in more.
Yeah.
so I mean, my preference is afternoons.
So like what, 2 o'clock or?
Yeah, anytime after, I'm good. I guess technically I could say probably 11 a.m. and onward I can be available. I'm also open to evenings as long as it's not too late, like nothing past 8 p.m. because I like to go to bed really early.
Yeah. That's you there.
So Bridget, what were you thinking? And you were going to suggest the 3rd or 4th week in May?
No, actually, I was gonna say June, just to give me a little bit of time, because I'm actually not back in the office till the 16th. So, and respectfully, I probably will have a lot to follow up on, so if we could do it, even the 13th of June, does that
Okay.
work?
That works for me right now, yeah.
Okay,
Just check, okay.
Oh, yeah. What do you do?
Oh, yeah.
What? Do you want to do?
No, Carly can totally. Because then I'm gone the
So-
following week. Let's make it.
Cindy's getting married, so. So she won't
Oh,
be with us.
congrats.
Next
That's
meeting. so-
exciting.
Oh, yes, second
Congratulations.
round. First time was a test run. I'm gonna get it right this round.
You're brave to go back.
This is so be 13th. Are you
Okay, so
13th?
Yeah.
the 13th for me, I have another meeting
Third.
that is, oh, sorry.
I think Cass no good for the 13th, sorry, Paul.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Cal.
Okay, so I have another meeting for another committee that I serve on from 1 to 3 on the,
One
On the
till two.
13th.
yeah, so it could be after, like from 3 on or another day.
What about the 20th?
Yeah, I could probably do the 20th. I know I'm leaving for California somewhere in there, but I don't know the exact date. But let's say yes to the 20th.
Leslie, does the 20th work for you?
Yes, yeah.
Tuesdays, you're good. Come on, County.
Make work.
And sorry, was that a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock start?
I think Craig's just checking his schedule, so we'll
Okay,
see.
sorry.
Quick little look.
This is the 20th?
20th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can do that. I have a work branch day. I should still be able to. Yeah.
Okay, at 2 or, yeah,
Whatever,
or
whatever
1?
you- yeah, whatever you need to do, I'll just take some time off.
Why don't we tend? And you're good. So why don't we tentatively, do you want to circulate 1 or 2 o'clock for the 20th? And we'll just touch base with Joey, Joanne and Manny, just to make sure they're okay as well.
Yeah, that sounds good, Cindy. I'm fine for whatever time works best for everybody else. I think I think Manny and Joanne prefer the 1 o'clock or 1:30 start time. So if that works for everybody else, we could propose that.
Okay,
Oh,
I feel like that too. I do agree. I think he has to be at work or something around 4. So let's
Yeah.
target for 1 o'clock on the 20th, if that works for everybody at the current moment. If there's any change, I'll definitely circulate it, but let's target for the 20th at 1 PM.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need a motion for that?
No.
Yes, we'll take a motion for that, and then we'll do a motion to adjourn. And I think, to be clear, ultimately, the only item we're gonna have on there is our strategic plan to update our, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Just gonna add that. Great, we'll get a motion.
So can we have a motion to agree to that our next meeting will be on June 20th at 1 PM?
I don't think you get a motion.
I
The
feel like you don't need a
Sustainability Advisory
motion for that.
Next scheduled meeting will be June 20th at 1 PM. That's okay, I'll create that part of it, so it's close,
Okay.
we're good.
Okay.
Moved by. Perfect, seconded by.
I'll do it.
Perfect. Okay, so D'Amico. Deputy Mayor Huntley,
Yes.
on a Fry, Chuck, is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay, perfect. Bill Cox and Crawford.
Yes.
And then just a motion to adjourn. Perfect, let's, both hands are up, no problems there. Perfect. Deputy Mayor Huntley,
Yeah.
Bill Cox,
Yes.
Crawford, on a Fry truck, and D'Amico. Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone.